Hello everybody, welcome back to my sunroom today. It's fall now and I'm getting a lot of questions about what I'm doing as far as fertilizing is concerned. Instead of just numbers, of course you have to talk about numbers and parts per million when you talk about fertilizers, but today I'm going to make this video practical as well. There's two parts to fertilizing in my mind. There's the technical part, and then there's looking at the plant to see what it needs, and that's more intuitive. My channel is sponsored by the Orchid Supply Store. They have everything you need to take care of your orchids and your plants. I'll place their link in the description box below, and be sure to use my coupon code AMY for a 12% viewers discount. All the bark, moss, perlite, potting soil AV mix, everything I use comes from the Orchid Supply Store. So let's talk about fertilizing. What am I fertilizing my orchids with, how much, and how often? For fall, it's important to keep up your fertilizer schedule because with almost all my orchids, they're all growing foliage right now. The foliage needs to be strong for the health of the plant, and this is the time of the year that everything is gearing up to spike. So while foliage is growing, I fertilize full strength. My fall fertilizer recipe is the same as what I use in the spring and the summer. And I'll place some links in my description box below with some videos. One of them you can watch me mix up my fertilizer and see exactly what I use. And the other will be my spring and summer fertilizer video with the exact amounts. That's the technical part of fertilizing. I love the nickname that Marianne and Tammy have given me, Einstein, and I do feel like a chemist when I mix up fertilizer. But today I'm going to try to sound a little bit less like Einstein, and we're going to be talking about the intuitive part of fertilizing. A good thing to keep in mind is if your orchid is actively growing, foliage or roots or spikes, they need fertilizer. Now, if you have an orchid that is dormant, it doesn't need as much. For instance, the new fan on my Neophanetia falcata has grown all it's going to, and there's no new growth I see. So this will get about half as much fertilizer as my other orchids. I'm not going to stop fertilizing it altogether. It just doesn't need as much as it did while it was actively growing in the spring and the summer. When it starts growing a new fan, it will be back to fertilizing full strength. New growth means fertilize. Right now, all my orchids, except for my huge Phalaenopsis orchids, get 250 parts per million of CalMag, seaweed extract, and Jack's Part 1 and 2 every time I water. I do still run clear water through the pots from time to time, but I don't skip the fertilizer much this time of the year. My huge phals, like Purple Dust here, they get a tiny bit more of the Jack's calcium nitrate, the Part B. I bump them up to about 270 parts per million. They are really heavy feeders and they are gigantic. And if I don't give them a little bit more of the calcium nitrate, the bottom leaves will start turning yellow on the tips, which means they're wanting more nitrogen. Ever since I started giving them that little extra pinch more, they're all doing great. So what I do is I mix up my fertilizer at 250 parts per million, and then when I fertilize my huge phals, I put in just a little bit more of the Jack's Part B, the calcium nitrate. I don't need to water quite as often this time of the year because of the cooler temperatures, and that means that they're getting slightly less fertilizer as far as frequency is concerned, but they're still getting the same amount when I do fertilize. From this time until the spikes completely mature, I fertilize full strength. I don't cut back on anything. The spikes need fertilizer to help them grow. I've noticed in my notes that I keep that I've been using Jack's fertilizer for a whole year. That's significant because I can really tell how a fertilizer is working for me by looking at my orchids and seeing how they've grown in that amount of time. My experience with the Jacks has been phenomenal. The new growths are very strong. The root growth is awesome, and that's a good sign that I'm going to have plenty of blooms. Let me show you some of my results and you'll see what I mean. The leaves of my phals are at least as large as last year's growth. This is the new leaf on my Equestris cross. And the growths are sturdy. They're an awesome, beautiful, shiny green. And that's significant to me. It's a reflection of the Jacks. Last spring and summer, we had more sunny days than we've had this year. So even with more cloudy days, I still got really good leaf growth. So that's really good. This is the best bloom cycle that I've ever had with Solea Champu. This is her new cane. That is the longest cane that has grown so far. You can see all the other canes are much smaller than this year's cane. And my Cattleyas have really grown this year. All the new growths are larger than last year's. The tallest canes that you see there are this year's growth. My Cattleya Lawless Gloriana, the one on the right, has fully mature canes with flower sheaths already formed. And since her growth cycle is seasonal, she won't grow anymore. She's ready to bloom. My other Cattleyas are still growing. They're not seasonal. They're non-discriminate growers, which means they grow all the time. So they still get the full strength fertilizer. Shout out to Patrick, growing orchids in Idaho, for making this differentiation clearer to me. Some Cattleyas, like Gloriana, are seasonal, and some grow all the time. So it depends on their genetics. If they're mostly species, then they're probably seasonal. So that affects how you care for them. I knew from growing Gloriana for 20 years that she was seasonal, because when she's done growing for the year, she's done. But I wasn't so sure on the other Cattleyas, so thanks again, Patrick, you really helped. So the main thing to keep in mind is when they're growing, fertilize them. When they're not, or when their growth slows, you pull back on the fertilizer and you fertilize them at a weaker rate. And I want to thank all of you for watching today. I hope that that was practical. I hope that this video is something that you all can really use. I appreciate you all. You're my orchid family. Just a reminder, I am offering channel memberships now. You can check them out by pressing the join button beside where you subscribe to my channel. And I want to thank all of my members as well. And before I end this video, I would love to say the blessing over you, your families, and your plants. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. You all make it a great day, and we'll talk to you next time.